Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to English grade 6. Students, today we will cover yet another students learning outcome and we are on our unit number 12. We are going to talk about figures of speech that we find in different texts. Yes. What are these figures of speech and how we can identify them? This is what we are going to learn. So let's move on to our students learning outcome. Today we will learn that how we can identify hyperbole, onomatopoeia, these words like clang, buzz, twang, etc. given in the text and paragraph writing. So you can find all these in the paragraph writing. We will talk about these and some other figures of speech for revision as well. Here is your vertical linkage and let's get started with our brainstorming session. Imagine that you are standing next to a waterfall. Hearing the water crash, feeling the cool mist and smelling the trees, how would you describe this to someone so they can picture it clearly in their mind? Yes, if somebody who has not seen it and you are describing it verbally or in the written form, how can you describe the sound of the water? How can you describe the passing of the wind and other noises, other things that you can see, touch, taste, smell, or hear? Now, in order to do these, we have some specific words. Can you describe when a water is falling from the stream? Good. Can you describe some sounds? Can you describe some other things that you observe in this scenario that we have just imagined? All right, let's move on. Let's talk about figurative language. Language that include figures of speech. First, we have simile. What is a simile? It is a comparison of two things using the words like or as. So when we are comparing two things, we are using these words like or as. So this way you can identify a simile. Let's look at an example. The ice cream melted like butter on a hot day. Ice cream and butter, they are being compared. These are two things. Number one, we have ice cream and secondly, we have our butter. Now, can you identify the simile word? Yes, like. The ice cream melted like butter. Butter also melts, ice cream also melts, so they are compared. And this is an example of simile. Secondly, we have example number 2. He ran as fast as a cheetah on the track. Can you identify the simile words? Yes, as. And it is written 2 times. So he and cheetah, they are being compared. Their running is being compared to each other. He ran so fast, it is just like a cheetah runs in the same speed and in the same form. So we are taking two things, comparing them with words like or as. Now, let's talk about another comparison, but here we don't use the word like or as, we directly compare it by calling it as it is. This is a comparison, dear students, of two things using the words is and are. For example, the classroom is a garden where ideas grow. We know that classroom is classroom and garden is garden, but we are comparing classroom with garden with the word is. The classroom is a garden. Why? Where ideas grow. Flowers grow in the garden. Ideas grow in the classroom. So we can compare classroom and garden and make an interesting analogy. Secondly, we can say books are windows to different worlds. We have two things, books and windows. We are comparing them using the word are. Why? Because we have plural forms over here, windows and books. So we know that using a window we can see outside, but in books, using them as a window, we can see so many different words and experience and see so many more things. So windows and books, they are compared, and this is a direct comparison, unlike simile. Let's talk about imagery. Imagery comes from the word image, which means picture. Imagery is a literary device that writers use to paint a picture in the audience head or the reader's head. For example, if you read this sentence, the grass tickled his skin and sweat cooled on his brow. Now, we know that we have some imagery. We can imagine grass, we can imagine skin, sweat, and brow, eyebrows. So by reading this, we can actually visualize what is happening. The grass tickled his skin and sweat cooled on his brow. Often, the imagery created appeals to the five senses that we have. Sound, taste, sight, smell, and touch. Means that the writers will try to invoke all these different senses in you so that you can actually taste something by reading it, you can feel like you're touching it, you're hearing the sounds, and you're also you are described to a smell which you can actually feel or smell. So all these different senses can be triggered using the words in the form of this example or any other examples. So these specific words, they can create image in your mind, and this is what we call imagery. You can find it in poems and in other texts as well. Here, students, it's a graphical representation of all these different type of senses and how they can be triggered. Let's talk about sight, seeing something. So if you read the sentence, the tiny red ant climbed up the broken twig. You can actually see it when you're reading it. Smell. The sweet smell of freshly baked apple filled the air. We know that what is the smell of something is baking, smell of fresh apples, so we can actually feel it. Taste. One bite of the sour lemon caused my lips to pucker. We know that when we are tasting something sour, it burns our lips and our mouth is on fire. So that's why, and in this way, you can actually feel the taste, or your mouth can get watery as well, just because of the words that we are using. If we talk about sound, we can say the car squeaked every time I hit a bump in the road. We know the sound of squeaking. It's a very annoying sound that we know. If we talk about touch, the sharp paper cut my finger and made it sting. So if you ever had a paper cut, you know the feeling, you know the pinchy and hurtful feeling. So by using these words like stinging, sharp edge, you can actually understand and feel it. So we have triggered all these different senses. Now, let's talk about some additional figures of speech. We have alliteration. What is it? This is a phrase that starts with the same sounds, like Sam Jack star shone in the moonlight. The consonant S is repeated so many times. So if you see any sentence like this, tongue twisters, or any verse of a poem that is repeating the consonant sounds again and again, we can call it alliteration. Or it can also be vowel sounds as well, or vowel letters. Here are some examples. Let me read the first one for you. The slay snake slithers slowly in the sand. The sound, the letter S is being repeated. This is a very good example of alliteration. Let's talk about hyperbole. This is an extremely exaggerated meaning. It means that we are exaggerating and saying much more than it should be. For example, the horseshoe attracted all the luck in the world. So, this is actually a far-fetched thing to say. All the luck, we cannot do it. This is not possible. But when we are saying this, like if your teacher tells you that I have told you million of times, I have told you 1,000 times, so you know that she or he did not say it 1,000 times or million times, but this is an example of hyperbole. All right, can you come up with your examples of hyperbole? Good. Here are some more examples. I am so hungry I could eat a horse. It's impossible. This is just hyperbole, an exaggeration. Strong as an ox. He is strong as an ox. So this is also an example of hyperbole. When we are talking about sounds and when we are describing them, students, we call them onomatopoeia. Can you say the word onomatopoeia? That's very good. These are words that sound like the noise being described. We know that the bee buzzed around the garden. The bee makes the buzzing sound like buzz. So this z sound is named like a letter, is named like the word like buzzed. The firework went off in a loud boom. Boom is a sound, buzz is a sound, ringing is also a sound. So ring, splash, twang, all these are sounds, but we use them as words to describe these sounds. Now, if you put your duster or anything on the table in a forceful way, you can hear the sound of boom. Or if you are dropping water, the water is running in the shower, you can hear the sound of splashing. If you drop something in the ocean, in the sea, a heavy rock, you can see that the sound splash comes up. So we have named all these different sounds to describe them for the readers. Here are some more onomatopoeic words that you can see over here for different occasions. Now, for the classroom activity, we are going to take up hyperbole and onomatopoeia. You have to read these sentences and underline the use of onomatopoeia and hyperbole. For example, we could hear the quack quack of the ducks as we threw them pieces of. Now, what sound does a duck make? It's the sound of quack. So we convert it into a word. So quack is an example of onomatopoeia. All right, here is your simulation link, which you can watch for better understanding and extensive learning. There goes your worksheet, students, which you can get, and you have to put your knowledge into practice by solving it, and you can find in the description of the video. For your homework, you have to identify the use of imagery in the poem. Highlight all these words that are giving an image in your mind. All these resources are added for your better understanding. Thank you so much for listening, students. I hope that now we are aware of all these different figures of speech. We have talked about alliteration, imagery, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, and we have also identified them with different examples. I'll catch you up in the next video lesson. Students, take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.